like in the Trump case, there still is where he signed a false document.
On the tangential subject, this is
Yeah.
probably the most frequent thing that people on the left want to debate me on, and it'll be interesting to hear your perspective on this. I
Mm-hmm.
think that the left, particularly people like Destiny, they realize they're fighting an uphill battle with the like Trump guilty of shit on January 6th. We're going to find
Mm-hmm.
more and more evidence of sort of the FBI involvement in that. I
Oh,
assure you that's
it's
coming.
not just it's not just FBI, but it's like
It's going to be like 13 agencies is what you're going to
oh
find,
oh
and it's
you're
going to be
it's federal law enforcement. You're gonna find like Army intelligence, Army counterintelligence. Because we're on federal we're in federal territory. You're gonna find military counterintelligence assets involved with this. Naval intelligence going to be
yeah.
involved. You're going to have like all kinds of agencies people have probably not heard of having people deployed. You're going to have probably the DIA had people involved in this. All kinds of glowies. It's going to look like the set of Chernobyl.
Yeah, it's
Once you realize
so
how it's
they've
mapped out.
realized like that's not the way. So what they've done is cleverly they sort of pivot, but they bring up January 6th and they talk about the alternate electors, and that's the real
Yeah.
damning point. So I haven't talked to you about this. I have my opinions on why I wasn't a fan of the alternate electors, but I didn't think it was a crime. Where's your stance on? Did Trump commit a crime? Did the electors commit a crime? What's your take on that? I assume you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, so here's where it comes down to. There's going to be like some of these were people who I think were kind of jerked around by, I'm like people like Sidney Powell and some people. They are running some of these organizations and being in charge of certain groups. Were getting people to sign things, and I don't think they understood what the hell they were getting into. But I do think there are some people who did this and they understood where they were. They knew they were falsely signing documents, which I do think is going to hurt some people. Like in the Trump case, there still is where he signed a false document. Like they went after for knowingly signing a false document. Like that was going to be one of the stronger points. But it looks like that got taken away from them because the court's like, well, that's technically a federal court issue now. But like there are some things where they probably were going to get people on. But yeah, with most of these alternate elector issues, I think it sucks for like people in Michigan. They're kind of SOL because the AG there's a lunatic, and then Greasy Gretchen's in charge, and as the oil drips off her forehead, they're not going to get anything from her. But I think there's other states where like they might have a chance. Like in Arizona, there's a couple people who got brought up on things. We'll find out if they can get out of it. But yeah, I think there's obviously there's going to be some people who knew what the hell they were doing. They knew it was kind of bullshit. But I think a lot of people were probably just being told like they weren't probably fully being apprised of what they're doing. But I think some of them, like I can't admit, like not everybody's in like, oh gosh, I didn't know what was going on. I think
Yeah,
there's some people who probably are going to get boned out of that.
the idea of falsely, I actually saw Nick Rahita talk about this, right, where he said that in order for the fraud, for a charge of fraud, it would have to be that the lie was impactful. For example, I could lie in a document that I'm the greatest home run hitter that's ever existed.
Yeah.
Vote for me. That's not a crime, even though it's a blatant lie. Even if I sign my name and swear to it. So the signing of the alternate
But
electors.
but yes, but the issue then becomes though very quickly that was used like because it becomes an issue of fraud. You're attempting to entice something to happen with that document. So the fact it doesn't succeed and nobody believes you, like I could forge a document and I go to the courthouse and like I could forge a deed saying you sold me land. And I go to the courthouse and record it and the lady's like, "Yeah, I don't buy that. Did I commit fraud or did I commit forgery?" "Oh, you bet I did." So the fact that it was intended to have an impact, it just didn't work. I mean, it was an unsuccessful attempt.
But
Being unsuccessful doesn't
it's
negate
not whether or not it was successful in the grand scheme
Yeah.
of thing. I believe the argument would be this, that the person that's getting it, whether it be people
Yeah.
in Congress or the vice president, is going to know who the electors were that were voted for. And so when someone says, I certified that I'm the duly elector, he knows that they weren't and that they're making sort of a political grandstanding point as a placeholder saying, we think that the process was corrupt and therefore.
And I don't just I understand what you're saying there, but still that becomes at the end of the day, you know, if your idea of making a statement is offering a fraudulent document, you have to be careful because, normally people offer fraudulent documents. It's normally to gain a fraudulent benefit. Now, I think that is probably for some of what that was intended to be, was people were signing it for the theatrical part of it, just like you see when these guys on January 6th coming up, they're going to act like idiots, they're going to act like morons. But we all understand it's theatrical. They're not like, you're like, oh, Trump can't take power. Like, okay, yeah, but they understand he's going to. It's all it's their theatrical part for their side of the aisle. But I just think there's ways you know, joke's on you, I was only pretending to commit a crime, or like there's better ways to do things. If you want to protest something where you don't have to look like you're going astray of committing a crime.
Mhm.
That's kind of where we run into that territory of like, you know, joke's on you, I was only pretending to, I was only pretending to commit forgery. It's like, well, there's better ways you could have done it.
Yeah,
I
I mean,
guess.
I ultimately think I don't think it was a good strategy. I don't like it at all. I would have been absolutely livid, particularly if I'm a lefty, and Pence would have been like, yeah, we're
Yeah.
going with the alternate, we're sending it back to the states.
Yeah.
I would be furious if that happened in the opposite way, and I always try to look at things through that lens.
Mhm.
I do think that these people, probably the majority of them that signed, like you said, like the actual electors that signed it, I think that they probably just have no fucking clue, and I feel bad for them. But I get what you're saying. I really do.
Yeah.
Ultimately, I think the lesson learned here is, unfortunately, because of the two-tier system we have, the truth is just that they will look for a reason to bring the hammer down on people that are
Yes.
from dissonant people. So you have to be more careful. I told people this in the immediacy after January 6th, because people are calling into my show, I'm condemning all political violence on the right or left. I'm telling people like January 8th, I think this is going to massively be blown out of proportion. I think that there were probably people that were agitating, that were state actors and they're agitating. But no doubt there were people that legitimately engaged in acts of violence, and they are going to get punished for it. And to some, maybe they'll be over punished, but they deserve to be punished. You don't get to just punch cops in the face. You don't. And I'm telling people are like, but we have to refresh the tree of liberty with the blood of tyranny here and there. And I'm like, look, even if I can't sell this to you morally, understand you're going to throw your life away. The feds are going to find an excuse to throw your ass in jail.
I mean, if you're going to be about that action, then you might as well go the full measure. Not just, I'm going to get into a fist fight,
right?
Like, I'm not saying, I'm not advocating for violence, but I'm just saying, chat, like, there is no like. If you're gonna get pregnant, there's no halfway getting pregnant.
Yeah.
You're either doing it or not.
And
so
the problem is, when you say this to people, though, this is what they say. But we just watched the left riot over and over.
Yeah.
We watched in 2016, they riot when Trump, and I'm like, yes, you're right. It's not fair. But I'm just trying to tell you, person to person, fairness doesn't matter when you're sitting in solitary confinement. You might say, but that's bullshit. This guy didn't get charged. Yeah, but just don't give them the excuse to charge you in the first place.
No, but in defense of that, I do agree that like people were basically, a building behind the White House starts catching fire and people are, attacking the White House, and we would have heard about the, Olympus is under siege if Biden was there.
Yep.
We would have heard all of that, and if you guys don't know where Olympus is, the code name for the White House. I know you probably know that. Well, yeah, there's the movie too, but yes, that's the name for it. But yes, had that happened under Biden's watch, or God Almighty, Obama's, it'd have been like it was a lynch mob coming for Obama. Oh no, yeah, you know what? Yes, we got to see that it happened, and as you said, it's right. Yes, do not trust your welfare into the benevolence of government officials. Because, yes, they might say, oh, we agree, you're just letting your anger out. Or they might say, no, we're going to just crush you and throw you in jail. Well,
yeah, I mean,
like I said, I think a lot of that was orchestrated, but we'll find out coming out.
Yeah, I totally agree. So my advice to people is always like, either be extremely careful. And I just I tell people this too. I think that, and this might be paranoid of me, but anytime you're talking about stuff like that, in a internet forum with anonymous people, you should always assume there's someone there either from the feds or that would be willing to report you to the feds. So don't say shit that if you truly believe that this system is two-tiered and is corrupt as people like me say, and the people in my audience seem to agree, then understand that won't prevent them from coming after you. And if you give them a reason, they will. They'll come after you and they'll plaster your name and say, see, do you see how extreme? And yes, I told the left, you can go back and watch my content going into 2020. panel after panel I was on talking to all these lefties saying, do you understand that your refusal to condemn or your condoning of the Black Lives Matter, the George Floyd violence, all but makes it inevitable that there'll be right-wing violence? Because inevitably the other side's going to say, oh, these are the new rules. These are the new rules of engagement. And I said, and when that happens, the right's going to be cracked down on in ways that you can't even imagine, and you people are going to scream and gnash your teeth and go, oh my God, look how violent they are, which is exactly what happened. That's, by any objective measure, the riots of George... I even had this big discussion with Destiny, like 5 days after the George Floyd riots were kicking off. And he makes the claim that rioting's the other side of the coin to voting. And that, the language of the unheard and blah, blah, blah. He does make the caveat that he doesn't think it's good to attack private property. But if you have a beef with the state...
That's what happens, though, in riots.
Well, that's right. But he's like, so burning down the police station's one thing, but looting the private company, that's another. But by that measure, January 6th is far less severe than the Black Lives Matter riots, right? Because January 6th, the only buildings that got affected were public, right? There were no private
The only buildings
looting.
that got affected were public, and we got to watch a bunch of elected officials wear those stupid shake and bake bags on their heads.
Nice, right? So I mean
that was, and I think for a lot of the government, that was the thing that pissed them off the most is they were like, there's videos of them, pictures of some of these people with the little oven bags on their heads looking like complete dopes. And then they're all hiding down low, and it's like, Jason Crow, and he's like, I'm the Army Ranger, I'm in Afghanistan. And he's just like, oh my God, they're here. It's like,
what blew my mind was like, no one understood the moment. Like, look, there's what's right and there's what's wrong. But then there's also what's good for you politically. No one took the moment politically to be a boss. Like, can you imagine some Democrat going out there and being like, F you, just standing on the stair, and like Secret Service having to grab them and say, you can't be here? That would have been their ad for, like, any Democrat that did that would instantly be one of the front runners for the Democratic primary, because they'd be like, I told the mob that day, so optically, and it just continues to amaze me. Like, best feeling I have for the country is there's retribution, that we start to see the same tactics that's been employed legally, though. I'm not suggesting illegal fines and warrants. I'm suggesting anytime there's serious accusations of crime, like Nancy Pelosi insider trading, immediately start an investigation. And hey, if it uncovers stones related to other crimes, that's good. We've learned that's okay. It's fine to do that. Like, that's what I'm suggesting. Hopefully then after that, cooler heads prevail, and it's like,
oh, I don't think it's probably not going to prevail. We're sorry.
No, it'll get way worse before it gets better.
We're not taking our foot off the gas.
Well, we shouldn't. I mean, there should be retribution until they cry out.
Well, no. I don't think you can go back to it, because now you're trusting one side to let up.
Right.
And that other side is demonstrated as soon as you let up all they're doing, they go back to sharpening their knives. So it's like, sorry, we're just going to keep at it. And, you guys wanted to play full contact.